Today we are just going to go over lots of sample problems so that we are not making some of the common errors that we were making before. You do not need to work through every single problem in the video. However, if you are making mistakes, please watch carefully, follow the examples, and then do some practice problems. All right, so we're going to start with this first one. I'm going to grab my pen here and solve. All right, so if this is an inequality that I'm going to be solving, so I do need to be careful about when I'm multiplying and dividing by a negative number, but in all other cases, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing that I did when I solved an equation. So the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is distribute, because I've got to be able to simplify this side of the equation. So I have 3x plus 6 minus 6x plus 6 is less than or equal to 0, exactly as I would have done with a regular equation. Now, I've got lots of stuff over here, only one thing over here, so that's good, but I need to get this down to just two things on the other side of my inequality sign. So I'm going to combine my 3x and my negative 6x. Combine those give me negative 3x. I've got a 6 and another 6, so I've got a plus 12 is less than or equal to 0. All right, so now I've gotten down to having just two things or less on either side of my inequality. Now I can start isolating my variable. That means I need to get rid of my 12. Minus 12, minus 12. I end up with negative 3x is less than or equal to negative 12. All right, now and only now can I divide. So I will divide by negative 3 on both sides. I've divided by a negative number, so that will flip my inequality. So x is now greater than or equal to, two negative signs mean I've got a positive 4. X is greater than or equal to 4 on a number line will look something like this. X is greater than or equal to, so I've got a filled in circle going to the right. So X is greater than or equal to 4. Okay. I'm going to need to get rid of that negative 4. I cannot add or subtract up here because both of those are attached to a negative 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by a negative 4 in order to get these items without a denominator. As I multiply by a negative number, that will flip my inequality. So I've got negative 20 is now greater than. These cancel out. I've got 7 minus 3h. Okay? I've got two things on this side and one on this, so I'm okay to go ahead and isolate. So I can subtract 7 from both sides. That gives me two negative numbers that I am adding together. Is negative 27 is greater than a negative 3h. I flipped my inequality once, but I'm going to be flipping it again because for a second time I'm going to be dividing by a negative number. Multiplied up here once, so that flipped it. I'm dividing now, so it's flipping it again. So two negative numbers divided by each other gives me a positive 9 is less than h. Okay, so if I've got h is greater than 9, remember I have to read this backwards, h is greater than 9, my number line will look like this. It's got an open hole on my 9 and then going off to the right because h is greater than 9. Okay, here's my third example. Now, I told you before I had to get rid of that denominator, except here I've got a part that's not attached to my denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this part first so that I have just this piece of my inequality. So I'm going to go ahead and add add, it's all in parentheses, so I can add the whole thing at one time to both sides. All right, and I will have left over 2 plus x divided by 2 is greater than 1, and then I had to add my x minus 1. Again, I didn't multiply first because this part did not have a denominator. So I got rid of this piece first by bringing it over to this side. All right, so now I have a denominator that I'm going to have to get rid of, but before I do that, notice I have 3 things on this side of my inequality. So I'm going to repeat this, but simplify this. I've got 1 and minus 1, so those are going to cancel out, and all I have left is an x. Now I can go back, multiply both sides by 2. And I get these to cancel out, so 2 plus x is greater than 2x. 2 times x is 2x. Got 2 things on this side, 1 on this. I can start simplifying or isolating. So I subtract x from both sides, which gives me 2 is greater than x, or x is less than 2, which I am going to put on my number line as x is less than, so open circle, and going off to the left, x is less than 2. Okay, here's those dreaded fractions. Let's go through this step by step. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that everything is simplified. I will have to get rid of this parentheses, so I need to distribute over here first. 3/4 W. I'm distributing a negative with that 1/2. So I've got negative 1/2 times 2, or negative 1. So negative 1w is just minus w. I've got a negative 1/2 that I'm multiplying by 1, so I've got a minus 1/2. Still less than 2/5. Okay, so I've got 3 things over here. I cannot do anything until I combine my like terms. I've got a 3/4 w and a negative w, so I have negative 1/4 w minus 1/2 is less than 2/5. All right, I don't like all of these fractions, so I am going to multiply by my least common denominator. I've got a 4, a 2, and a 5. My least common denominator will be 20. So I'm going to multiply everything through by 20. I'm going to do this the long way, so if you know how to cross simplify, you can go ahead and do that. But for people who do not know what I'm talking about, please follow every step that I'm doing. I've got 20 times negative 1/4 w. So I have negative 20 over 4. I multiply, this is really 20 over 1, so I multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. Negative 20 over 4w. 20 times negative 1/2 is minus 20 over 2 is less than 40 over 5. Again, if you already know how to cross simplify, you could have done that, but right now I can now get rid of these fractions by just dividing. I've got negative 20 divided by 4. That is simply negative 5. I've got a 20 divided by 2, so that's just minus 10. Less than 40 divided by 5 is 8. So notice, we multiplied by the least common denominator all the way through, and when we did that, we were able to come up with a whole number as, oops, that reminded me I needed a W here. I came up with a whole number as my coefficient or as my constant. Now I can start to solve. I will add 10 to both sides. Negative 5w is less than 18. Divide by negative 5. both sides, and I get W is, remember, flip the inequality, greater than negative 18 over 5. And if you do not like improper fractions, that's the same as negative 3 3/5. Either answer is perfectly fine. What that will look like on a number line. W is less than, and it's a negative number, so I've got my 3 over here and my negative 4 over here, and it's negative 3 3/5, so I will be somewhere over here with an open circle at my 3 3/5, and my W is greater than, so I'm going to be going in this direction. Okay, so let's try a word problem with this. Trey is limiting his diet to no more than 600 calories per meal. For lunch, he had a can of iced tea and 2 bowls of soup. The tea had 140 calories. What are the possible number of calories in each bowl of soup? So I know that my total calories have to be less than or equal to 600 for this meal. My soup is going to be twice those calories because I'm having 2 bowls of soup. So in those calories, 2 of them are going to be 2 bowls of soup. So I've already had 140 calories, but I can have some amount of calories more. And remember, it's soup, 2 cups of soup, so it's going to be 2C, and that has to be less than or equal to 600. It said no more than, which means it's going to be less than or equal to. I've got 2 things on both sides of my equation. I'm good to isolate. And so I have 2 of those calories have to be less than or equal to 460. Divide by my coefficient of the variable, and I get C is less than or equal to 230. Okay, so 2 things here. One, I need to be able to graph that. So here's my 0. Here's my 230. Now I'm going to have a filled in circle for 230, but because this is a real world example, I'm not going to eat negative calories. So I'm going to also have a closed in circle here at 0, and it can be anything in between these 2 points. Okay, because I can't have negative calories, 0 has to be my bottom limit. But let's go back and check this one, and our check step would look something like this. If I had 140 calories of iced tea, I had 2 cups of soup at 230 calories each, I had a total of 600 calories. Is that less than or equal to 600? Indeed. So I've got variables on both sides of my equation. Again, just like when we were solving equations with an equal sign, that's an equation rather than an equality, we were going to move them all to one side. So we had our variables on one side and our constants on the other. Everything here is simplified. I have 2 things on either side of my inequality, so I can start isolating. Notice that on this side I've got a 3b, and on this side I've got a 5b. Well, I'd rather keep my variable positive so that I don't have to worry about flipping my inequality. So I'm going to start by taking 3b away from here on both sides. So I'm left with 2b plus 20 is greater than negative 2. I can go ahead and subtract my 20 from both sides so that I have 2b is greater than negative 22. Dividing by 2 on both sides. Now I've got a negative over here, but I'm dividing by a positive number, so my inequality will not flip. B is still greater than, and it is greater than negative 11. I'm going to graph that on my number line. Here's my negative 11. There's 0. B is greater than, so I've got a whole at negative 11, and it's going to go to the right because it is greater than negative 11. Okay, this one looks a little less pretty, but it is going to simplify down to something just as simple as the last one. I'm going to have to distribute first because I've got these parentheses I need to get rid of. So I've got 2a plus 10 is less than or equal to 2 times negative 2a, or negative 4a, 2 times 3 plus 6 plus 6a. I'm not going to start moving anything around because I need to combine like terms. I've got 3 things on this side of my inequality. I am not going to do anything until I have 2 or less. So my left side still looks like that. My right side, I'm going to combine my a's so that I have 2a plus 6. Well, I can get rid of my 2a from here. It's not going to matter which side I subtract from. And I'm left with 10 is less than or equal to 6. Could that ever work? No. So I've got no solutions. So just like when we had our equations where we had an equal sign, I can in fact have no solutions or infinite solutions if I find that if I had a solution that was something like 6 is less than or equal to 6, well, that can happen all the time. So that would have been a solution where there are all infinite number of solutions. This is an identity, infinite number of solutions. Okay, and finally, slightly more complicated question, but again, if I distribute and then make sure that I've combined terms so that I have no more than 2 things on either side, I should be able to solve this without any problems. Plus 24 plus 2. I still have 3 things over here, so I can't start moving anything around yet. I've got 26. So I've got a 5n over on this side and an 8n over on this side. I'm going to choose to keep a positive variable. And now I can get rid of my 26 from both sides. Negative 36 is less than 3n. Divide by 3 on both sides. Negative divided by a positive is negative 12. I'm not going to change my inequality because I divided by a positive number. Less than n. Okay, remember I read that backwards, so n is greater than negative 12. On a number line, that's going to look like this, greater than negative 12. One word problem and we're good for the day. So Jay can buy a stereo either online or at a local store. If he buys online, he gets a 15% discount, but he'll have to pay a $12 shipping fee. At the local store, the stereo is not on sale, but there's no shipping fee. So I want to know at what price is it cheaper for Jay to buy the stereo online? Okay, so I know that if I buy it online, I get a 15% discount. So I'm going to make my price equal to P. So my regular price is P, but they're going to give me a 15% discount. So I'm going to subtract 15%, and a percent written as a decimal is 0.15. So I'm going to subtract 15% of that price. But remember, I also have to pay a shipping fee of $12. I want to know when this will be less than buying it at the store for full price, which is my P. All right, so I've got to combine some like terms. I've got 0.85P plus 12 is less than P. Now I can get rid of my 0.85p Oops, 85p. So that I've got 12 is less than 0.15p. I need to divide by 0.15 both sides. So 12 divided by 0.15 is 80. 80 is less than p. So when my price is greater than $80, then it is cheaper for me to buy that stereo online, even though I have to pay that $12 shipping fee, because at full price of $80 with my discount plus the $12 shipping fee, it will then be cheaper to buy it online. How do I graph that? Here's my 0. Here's my $80. Once it is greater than $80, not at $80, but greater than $80, it will be cheaper to buy it online. All right, if these made sense to you, hopefully they did. Move on, do your online quiz. If you're having any questions or concerns, please repeat some of these, go over them yourself, stop the video, try to solve it again yourself. And if you're still having concerns or problems, please come in to see me. Before school, after school, during advisory, anytime is fine. Wednesday mornings, you can find me outside in front of the buses, but any other day I will be in my class.